territories. The National Crime Agency says there is evidence of modern slavery and human trafficking in every large town and city in the UK, with tens of thousands of people being exploited. And the Food Standards Agency says that around 700,000 potentially contaminated eggs have been sent to the UK from Dutch farms. That is more than 33 times its original estimate. Well, hello there. You're watching the Press Preview, a first look at what is on the front pages. In the next half hour, we'll see what's making the headlines with the political journalist Isabel Oakeshott and the Observer's chief leader writer, Sonia Sodha. Coordinated as we are this evening in colours. What were we thinking? Anyway, front pages, shall we take a look? The Telegraph reports that MPs are demanding tougher sentences for Asian gangs who groomed hundreds of white teenage girls. The contaminated egg scandal is the lead for The Times. It reports that supermarket sources say the problem is likely to be far bigger than regulators admit. Also leading with that story, the Daily Mail, after the Food Standards Agency announced that the number of eggs contaminated with banned pesticide was far bigger than first thought. Metro also going with that, saying supermarkets are clearing their shelves after safety chiefs admitted they had vastly underestimated the number of contaminated eggs to enter the UK from Dutch farms. And the Express also reporting that the number of eggs contaminated is actually thought to be around 700,000. Millions more are made to wait by the NHS. The eyes take on the latest waiting time figures to have been released. The insurer Prudential is to merge its two biggest UK businesses, ironically in an effort to break up its expanding presence in Asia. That's the lead for the FT. The Guardian reports that checks carried out after the Grenfell disaster show that many buildings in the area may be at risk of collapse. The Daily Mirror says RAF planes could be sent on a surveillance mission for nuclear weapons to North Korea as tensions with the pariah state rise. Right, okay. Hercule Parrot is the Sun's headline as it reports on a bird that helped police catch a burglar. Get you. And the Star leads with the latest from the Celebrity Big Brother house. Just reading that one as well. Anyway, to the other matters. Eggs, all over the place. Eggs, really poisonous eggs now, as you can see from all the headlines. And a scramble makes a number of mentions as well. So,
I don't think they're
really great headlines.
They're not that poisonous. I don't think there's a need for a kind of mass egg panic.
But it does fit nicely on a headline, doesn't it, the poison part?
And the scramble bit's quite as well. So it actually took Sonia and I quite a while to work out what was going on with this story. Both of us had sort of tuned the story out all day and not really kind of engaged with it. It is a significant sort of food scandal. And the question seems to be about some very toxic pesticide, which has somehow managed to get into the food system. And it took us a while to actually find out how this actually happened. How is it that the eggs could possibly have got a pesticide? Because clearly you wouldn't normally treat chickens with pesticide. And what seems to have happened is that the chemical got into some kind of product that's used for cleaning, presumably industrial chicken plants. So that's how it's happened. And in terms of what is contaminated, it appears to be not eggs that you're getting in a box, but eggs that you find in sandwiches. And there are all sorts of retailers and products affected. But it appears that the numbers are, in terms of quantity of chemicals, relatively harmless, really.
Yes. Do we have a helpful list here of the products that have been withdrawn or taken off the shelves for precautionary purposes?
Yeah, and it's because we source so many of the eggs that come in boxes in the supermarket. We source so many of them from Britain. I think 85% of the eggs you find on the supermarket shelf are British sourced. It's more that in other products on the shelf, suppliers, food manufacturers do tend to look for cheaper eggs from the continent. And it turns out, actually, it's a really good explainer in the Daily Mail on page 2.
Yeah, because none of the other papers
kind of really explain exactly how this fertilizer
been around since the beginning of the week, but at the time, was it 21,000, and now it's gone up to 700,000.
Yeah, it's a lot more. And apparently it was because of an infestation, a red mite infestation in Holland. Now, that would never normally be treated using this sort of poisonous insecticide, but farmers were supplied with it. It's actually illegal illegal to use, and they didn't realise that they were using it. But apparently, I mean, I think we do need to keep things in context, as Isabel said. So in Germany, experts there reckon that a young child could eat 1.7 eggs a day. I'm not sure how you'd eat a 0.7.
Most of kids' eggs end up on the floor, don't
Right,
they? So
okay.
probably quite realistically.
Without danger.
Or 6 raw ones for me last week.
So it's more a precautionary measure, I think. But it does highlight these issues of where does our food come from, and probably people won't be so aware that if you buy an egg, it's very, very likely to be British. But if you buy a product that has got eggs in it, like deli fillers or cakes, etc., a lot of that will be resourced from abroad.
And the EU proudly has this early warning system, doesn't it, to prevent these sorts of food scares. The only problem is that the Belgian government has identified that this Dutch egg contamination actually started in November 2016, which is why the Food Standards Agency says we've probably consumed the dodgy eggs already.
I mean, none of this really
Might explain something,
Why
mightn't it?
are you looking at me? I don't eat eggs.
Brexit, there's one word for it. Anyway,
Oh, don't even go there. Don't even go there. We're avoiding the Brexit scenario.
Yes.
That shut us up.
No, they did. Yes, exactly.
Let's just kill a conversation.
Yeah. So the Express going with that. The Guardian as well down there. Supermarkets act over suspect egg products. Their second story.
With a picture of something that looks almost like a chicken, but actually looks more like a Bigfoot.
This is the Fringe.
From Edinburgh, yeah.
Okay.
I thought it was quite good placement.
Definitely
Yes,
not.
somebody's thought that one through. No, I don't know what that is. We can, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. But as you say, the scramble word is all over the place, isn't it? Scramble to recall, and there's the poison word again. So anyway, right. So let's move on, shall we, to the other big story around, I suppose, which is Trump. But it is a small par on the front of the on the front of the Telegraph today.
Oh, we're only nuclear war.
Possible nuclear Armageddon looming. So Trump has issued another warning to North Korea, saying that they should be very, very nervous if they are thinking of any kinds of strike on US assets or territory. And I think so far this is all about rhetoric, isn't it? And the extent to which the president of the US and the North Korean leader are actually going to make matters worse with their rhetoric, or does that do anything to diffuse the situation? And clearly things are extremely delicate. And I suppose that most people are kind of just thinking this will never happen, aren't they? And that's why it's top left corner of the papers rather than
front page splash for the Mirror.
And I was interested to see this suggestion that the RAF may be called in to help with this, because actually the RAF is really struggling resource-wise for aircraft at the moment. It seems
You can tell Isabel's writing a book on defence.
Sonia, it seems very odd that we should be called in to do this. After all, the US has far more planes than we do and far more resources, and we would be having to borrow, beg and borrow to actually resource those types of
things. We're a bit closer to North Korea, might that be it?
Depending what base they were going from, I suppose. I think that's a bit.
No, but also in Iraq and Syria, our role was surveillance, wasn't it? So I suppose they've got used to asking us to send our Nimrods into the sky. And
well, we don't really have any maritime patrol aircraft at the moment to get really technical on.
Okay.
I mean, there has been just such an extraordinary escalation, I think, of rhetoric in the last 2 weeks, and I think. A year ago, 2 years ago, who would have expected that you'd have had a US president using the sort of language that he has been? One of my colleagues, actually, Jonathan Friedland, has recently published a novel about a president about to set off World War III with the nuclear codes under the name of Sam Bourne, and I read it last weekend, actually, and it's really weird the way that reality seems to be echoing the plot of a political thriller.
In a weekend?
Yeah.
Did you?
Yeah, I did.
Really
I did. It was a page turner, but also quite chilling given what's going on in the real world. And let's all hope it doesn't turn out like that.
Yes. Well, talking of chilling and real worlds, let's take a look at the Financial Times, shall we? Story midway through the paper's front page. A hearing loss among US diplomats who were based in Cuba.
This is such a fascinating story. I mean, it's obviously very sinister, but other than that, as a journalist, I love the story. It's like, again, something out of a novel. The story is that at the end of last year, a bunch of US diplomats based in Cuba collectively sort of reported that their hearing had been damaged. And this seems to have been traced back to a a type of high-pitched noise or very damaging sonar thing that they were clearly unaware of at the time, but was actually damaging their hearing in some way. And the suggestion is that this was a hostile attack. At the moment, I am writing a book on defence with Lord Ashcroft, and I've been researching...
Did you mention that?
You mentioned it, actually.
That's true, that is true.
I've been researching all the different types of kind of new ways of hybrid warfare, and I've never, ever heard of this. It seems a completely sort of new line. I'm sure there's many other things that we
Yeah, the white noise is used for torture, isn't it? But,
yes, and then you've got those mosquito...
Deterring kids from loitering.
To deter young people, that buzzy sound that only young people hear. What they don't say in this story, actually, which I'd be really interested to know, is whether the hearing loss is permanent or whether it's only when you're around these machines, and we don't yet know that. But it sounds like a sort of weird tale, but it's actually having a real impact on diplomacy. So as we know, relations between Cuba and the US are
pretty delicate.
But they've improved markedly over the last 2 years. And Trump, in response to this, partially reversed the improvement in the relationship that we'd seen, and he asked 2 Cuban officials in Washington to leave the country because of this. So it's really not a great time for this to be coming out.
But that said, the Cubans have been extremely vociferous in their denials, and the speculation in the reporting is it could be a third party, in
maybe Russia,
even Russia, which seems to get the blame for everything at the moment. But
it would be bizarre, wouldn't it?
Very bizarre. Let's move on elsewhere, shall we? Low-calorie diets are key to slowing the aging process.
Rather depressing, given all the food that I've enjoyed today, including some fun-sized chocolate bars in the office earlier. But
in the plural, fun-sized.
Yes, well, they were fun size. But yeah, so I think we've heard some of this before. It's not new, but there is a new bit of research that adds to this idea that actually, if we go on very low-calorie diets, that helps slow down the aging process in human beings. And in the developed world, we eat far too many calories. I think the statistics, you need about half the calories that we consume, or perhaps even less, for survival. So, this is the way to stay healthy for a long time.
Do you mind if we just hold off for a moment, because there are reports coming, and this started with the Sun newspaper, actually, what they call a dramatic swoop on the Ibis Hotel in Manchester's Salford Quays, some half a mile from the Old Trafford. Large numbers of armed police have entered a building. Emergency services are on the scene on Trafford Road near the city centre. So a huge police presence has been seen at a hotel near Old Trafford in Manchester city centre. Armed police and around 15 squad cars are said to be on the scene at the Ibis Budget Hotel in Salford Quays. So that's the very latest we've got from there. Hopefully bring you more pictures a little bit later on. So ambulances have also been sent to Trafford Road as well. A spokesperson, and I'm quoting the Sun here, for both Greater Manchester Police and the ambulance service they have not yet managed to get comments from them. So we will have to wait and see what is happening at the Ibis Hotel in Salford Quays in the Manchester area. Lots more on that to come, more from the papers as well. Would-be burglar who really picked the wrong house. Back in just a moment.